What's up, everybody? In this video, I'm going to be showing you my internal operations and automations that have allowed me to streamline my list building efforts across all of my different clients. I'll be showing you how we export leads from Apollo and then add those leads into our Clay account, which has a bunch of different tables that are unique to our individual Smartlead campaigns. You can see we've got the Smartlead IDs, and in each of these tables, we are validating leads, enriching them with AI, doing all of these different things, and then finally sending the leads that are valid over into our Smartlead account. And then we are managing all of this through our ClickUp account. And this ClickUp setup over here is very awesome because it gives us tasks to do, and how those tasks come up is through this filter over here. So this is filtered by to do, and so this informs us all of these campaigns over here need to have lists built for them. And the trigger for this that changes it from completed to do is when the lists go below a certain threshold. And so, for example, if we've got 500 leads in a campaign, and then when the new day pops up, we've got 200 leads, this is going to move this from completed to do, and then it's going to come up in this section over here. It also has a notification that lets us know that we need to build this list. But why this is important? Why this is important is because everything from start to finish is streamlined. And so the list source is here, the Clay table is here, and the campaign URL is here. And so when we look at this over here, so automated prospecting from Apollo to Clay to Smartlead, all of that is inside that Clay workspace. And so I don't even know if automated is the right word because a lot of this stuff is automated, and I'll get into that. But I think it's more about organization, and you'll see why, right? Because if you don't have organization, this is not going to work. So to get into the organization, the first thing you will notice is that every single one of my clients has a folder that is unique to them. Where we get this folder is through our client onboarding experience. And so when we onboard a brand new client, we add them over here, and then we put a bunch of different fields, which is going to trigger an automation. But this client onboarding experience basically takes them through these steps. And so to get into that specific automation that I just mentioned, it would be this. So the webhook is triggered. We add them into different things, do all of these different things. But more specifically, we are getting Clay tokens, adding them the folder over here, adding a bunch of different subfolders, and then relinking this information back into our ClickUp account. And so if we were to look at this client over here, this client has a Clay folder that is unique to them. And let me show you how this has a 360 turnaround on the automations, right? So one of the folders that we create is the archived folder. And so what an archived folder is basically deleted campaigns. And so, for example, if I were to delete a campaign from my Smartlead account over here, it's going to trigger this automation over here, which deletes a Google Drive folder, deletes the task. But we don't necessarily want to delete Clay tables as they are time consuming to come up with. And sometimes they have key information that we want to retain. And so this would simply move the folder to the archived section. But if you notice, we've got this section over here which gets the client. And so by getting the client, we are getting the archived ID. And by getting the archived ID, we are then able to move the campaign to the specific folder that it needs to go to, right? And so that's one example of why this stuff is important. So let's get back into the automated list building, right? And so when we look at this section over here, we've got the not started, which I've explained, the list status, all of this stuff works based on the not started and the analytics. And then we've got list sources. And so why it's awesome to have it inside ClickUp as opposed to any other source is, for example, if we go to our Apollo account, right? There's a few ways to save a search, right? So we've got this search over here. You can save the search, but the problem with saving a search is it's not linked back to the specific campaign. And so right here with this search, it's an awesome search. I want to come back to it, but I don't know which campaign it's linked to. And so that's a problem, right? And so these net new, they just get lost and I never come back to them. Another way to do it is by saving a list. And so as you can see, we've got a saved list over here. But again, same problem. We don't have a way to relink it back to the specific campaign. And so the way that I'm doing it is by grabbing a list, so doing the filter the way that I want it for the specific campaign, and then simply copying the URL. And when we copy this URL, we can just put it in this section over here, so the Apollo URL. And so if you look at this, right, if you look at how all of this is structured, we get a brand new task, right? The status moves from completed to do. It pops up over here. We get a list source, which is in Apollo. And when we click on this, we've got a section over here that has a bunch of net new contacts. So we are good to go. We don't even need to do anything special, right? We just go to the net new section and we just export these leads, right? And then when we export these leads, guess what? We just click on this, which is the clay table, and this clay table allows us to import the leads. And the way that this is structured is very dynamic to account for any type of lead source, and I'll get into that, right? And then from here, we don't even need to do anything else. It just goes into the Smartlead campaign URL. But again, there's automations, but this is about organization, right? What I just did right here would take a lot of brain bandwidth, right? Like, what is the list? What is the saved list? All right, let me do all of the filters again. You've already filtered. You've already built your list. You don't need to do this again, right? And you can also have a sales nav, right? So sales nav URL, right? Sales nav URL. And for example, if you've got the sales nav URL, you've finished it, you just put done, right? And then like if you have this task, but you don't have all of these are done, right? You just find another list. You find another list. Right. Let's get into these clay tables. So these clay tables are coming from the master campaign table. So the master campaign table is the table that basically acts as a template, right, for every single campaign. And so it's got the full name, first name, last name, title, all of these different things, right? And it also has the different validation providers, the email finding providers, all of this stuff. But more specifically, it's all of the underlying formulas that are inside this table that we don't want to have to constantly repeat over and over and over and over, right? Like, for example, finding the company description, right? This is something that most times, if we're doing AI enrichment, AI first lines, anything like that, we're going to want to have a company description. And so we use a waterfall enrichment, which checks for the account ID inside Apollo, which has an API limit of 200 runs per minute or 400 runs per hour, unless you upgrade the plan. But when that is hit, it runs into an error. And so dealing with that error over and over and over, I decided I just need a waterfall enrichment. And so when that error happens, we go into HubSpot to look for the company, and that company is typically enriched with a company description. So we just grab that company description. If the HubSpot doesn't work, we then at that point leverage actual clay credits, and this section over here has a specific formula. This stuff we don't want to do over and over and over and over, right? We just don't, right? And like we've got a formula, right? If we have a full name, but we don't have a first name, right? We've got this formula which grabs the first name from the full name, so on and so forth, right? And so regardless of where we get the list, we're always going to have this information handy. And so, boom, that is the master campaign table. We also have a normalized Apollo from IDS, probably worth showing you. This is another example of that. So ZP, right? ZP, all of these are just like weird names that you would normally otherwise have to map and then have everything, right? So if we were to import people from CSV, pull up a random instant data scrape CSV, as you can see, all of this stuff linked, right? We don't need to do this again. It's already done. And then when we write it to another table, it's very simple. We simply just choose a table, and all of this is already in every single table. So every single table that we have has the same information that is in here. And so we can just direct it to any table that we want, regardless of how convoluted all of this stuff looks, right? And so going back to the project management, we've got the list source, right? And I'm going to be doing another video on how we can automate the imports into our account. And actually on that point, let me show you a different thing on that point, right? So when we go into Clay, right? We go into Clay. We've got a Clay list building section. And this, by the way, is created during the uh, uh, onboarding automation over here. So list building. What this means is anytime we are importing custom lists that come from Clay, for example, using the find companies, find jobs, or any of these other sections over here, that would go in the specific Clay list building folder. And when we look at this campaign, this over here, we're importing the jobs, we're doing all of these different things, and it's all unique, right? It's all different. And by the way, this is like the first go around I was trying to do this type of campaign, right? But once that is actually really good, once this is working, like this Clay list building, the custom one, we actually just move it into the campaign playbooks. And so the campaign playbooks is another set of tables derived from the master campaign table, but leveraging unique different things. Actually, not derived from the. Actually, I'm confusing myself. The campaign playbooks are derived from these, but they have different things that we don't have to do it again. The Clay list building is derived from itself. Sorry about that. And so this right here is going to then, at the end of it, send it to a specific table, right? So we've got one table, second table, another table, right? Depending on different things, right? And so that's how we've structured that. And so the automations that allow us to do this is the onboarding one. I've already shown that. And then we leverage the campaign monitoring one. So this is what updates the analytics, not started, completed, in progress. It updates it for every single one of them. And then at the top over here, we have a section that renames the table. And so when we go back here, all of these tables are the same as inside our Smartlead account, and then we put a description with the Smartlead ID. And how we create this initial link is using our campaign creation process. And so as we're creating the campaigns, they have to go through all of these different steps. So generate copy, create spin tags, all of these up until the point where they're active. And so add campaign to Smartlead adds the campaign, but generate campaign copy, this is this automation right here. And so this automation uses AI to generate campaign copy based on our playbooks and all of these other things. But in addition to that, it creates the Clay table over here, right? And so the Clay table, this is a duplicate of the master table or a duplicate of the playbooks table. And so when looking at this, if we were to choose a playbook as a manual playbook, for example, this would duplicate the master table. If we were to choose an Apollo sequence, this would duplicate the Apollo sequence playbook table over here, right? And so and then move it again into the specific client folder. Again, this is going back 360, right? Going back 360. Moving into the client folder, looks at the client with the Clay folder so that we know where to move it to automatically, right? And so that's how this stuff is created, right? We duplicate it, we move it to the folder, and then we add that information into the specific task. And so we've got the task, and that task has the Clay table URL over here. And then when we go back into the list building section, we've got the Clay table. And in the campaign URL, this is created after the table goes into add campaign to Smartlead. In fact, I don't think I have that open. So let me pull that up, right? So campaign, so campaign, and then Smartlead. Send campaign copy to Smartlead. This is what's sending the. So after we've done all of that stuff, we change the status. And then we also add the campaign URL and that stuff, right? So we add that. So that's how we're linking all of this stuff together. But again, organization. Start from 1, 2, 3. Have that all streamlined for each specific campaign, and then we're good to go. So hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. If you enjoyed this, leave a like. Cheers.